Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Well, Jello again, another episode of the Jack Benny program. This from the last season of the show, February 27th, 1955. Jack is wanting to watch wrestling on TV. And there are some problems with the TV set, as one would expect. By the way, listen to who the commentator of the wrestling matches are. That'll make you giggle.
The Jack Benny program. Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Rochester, Dennis Day, Bob Crosby, and yours truly, Don Rose. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to take you back to Thursday evening at the CBS radio studios. The Jack Benny Show has just finished its weekly rehearsal.
All right, fellas, that's about it. But before anybody leaves, I want to check some things. Hey, Malin.
Yes, Jack?
I'd like you to rehearse the opening music with the boys. I like the tempo picked up a little. You know?
Okay. I intended to have another orchestra rehearsal anyway.
I want to stay and go over my song once more.
Well, fine, Dennis. Now, Don.
Yes, Jack?
One little thing. Every time we rehearsed that joke on page 12, you broke up and laughed through the whole thing.
Yeah, I know.
Well, Don, you're supposed to play that straight. You're supposed to do it with sincerity. It's not funny when you laugh.
Jack, I can't help laughing. It is funny.
Well, let's try it once more, Don. This time, play it straight. Let's rehearse it once more. It's on the bottom of page 12. Go ahead.
Okay.
Now, take it, Don. Now, don't laugh. Just take it.
You know, ever since I was born, my father wanted me to be a jockey.
Oh, Don, that's silly. Jockeys only weigh about 90 pounds.
Well, that's exactly what I weighed when I was born.
For heaven's sake, you laughed all the way through it again.
Well, Jack, I just can't help it. It's so ridiculous.
Ridiculous?
Yeah, when I was born, I weighed 120 pounds.
How do you like that? And I paid a writer $9 for that joke. Now, fellas, we'll have another script rehearsal tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
Can't you make it later, Jack? I've got to get a haircut tomorrow morning.
Well...
Oh, Mr. Benny, I have to get a haircut, too.
Hey, that's a coincidence. I have to get a haircut, too.
The only thing I can't stand is a bunch of show-offs. Look, fellas, we've scheduled the rehearsal for tomorrow morning. Why do you have to waste time like that?
Oh, it's not a waste of time, Jack. Don't you get haircuts when your hair gets too long?
He has Rochester wash it and it shrinks.
Dennis, I suppose you thought that was funny.
Yes, sir.
I agree with him, Jack.
Oh, you agree with him, eh, Don?
Yeah. According to the greatest authorities on comedy, the basic ingredient of all humor is the blunt insult.
Really, Don?
Yes.
Well, shut up, blubber bucket. Is that blunt enough? Now, let's see. Dennis, if you're ready to rehearse your song now, I'd like to hear it.
Oh, my throat is a little dry. I think I'll get a Coke first.
Oh, well, Malin, why don't you let the boys in the band take a little break?
Yeah. Okay, fellas, take 5.
He meant 5 minutes, not breaks. What a bunch of guys.
Go ahead, fellas, take a 5-minute break.
Oh, say, Malin, I've noticed something. Every time the boys in the band leave, Sammy the drummer stays behind. Now, why doesn't he go with them?
Well, Sammy doesn't like to mix with them. They're always insulting him and saying mean things about him.
See, I've noticed that, too. Why doesn't he stick up for himself and answer him back?
Oh, he's afraid to.
Afraid to, but Sammy's the biggest guy in the band. Is he a coward?
Not exactly, but you see, he's been down on his hands and knees so long, he thinks everybody is 10 feet tall.
Gee, He must think the piano is the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, that's about all. I'm going to my dressing room. Mail, let me know about those new arrangements as soon as they're ready, will you?
Okay, Jack, I'll call you. What's your number at home again?
Crestview 40555.
Crestview 40555.
That's right. See you tomorrow, fellas.
Oh, I'll walk with you, Mr. Benny. I'm going out in the hall for a drink.
Okay, kid. Gee, the studio sure looked nice and bright since they replastered and painted the wall.
Yeah.
Must have cost a lot of money.
It cost $4,629.92.
Dennis, how'd you know the exact amount?
My mother was foreman on the job.
Well, here's the Coke machine. You said you wanted to get one.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's see. Oh, here's a dime. Nothing came out.
Dennis, don't beat on the machine like that. You'll break it.
But I put my dime in and nothing came out.
Well, that's the chance you take.
Oh. Say, wait a minute. Here's a sticker on the machine. It says, for repairs, call Crestview 40555.
See you later, Dennis.
Hey, wait a minute. That's your number.
Don't be such a bad loser. I'm going to my dressing room. Well, I'll get all my things out of here, out of my dressing room, and then I'll... Yes, miss?
Say, what are you doing here?
Miss, this happens to be my dressing room.
Mister, either you can't read or you ought to get your glasses fixed.
It's my dressing room. It's been converted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I guess I'll get my things together. First, I better call the parking lot and have them push my car around to the front. It takes longer now that a wheel is missing. Hello, this is Mr. Benny. Will you please bring my car around to the front? Thank you. Well, I might as well go now. I think I'll go to the studio and say goodbye to the gang. So long, fellas.
Oh, Mr. Benny, I thought you'd gone home.
I'm just leaving. Can I drop you at your house?
No, I'm going to the doctor across the street. I'm getting a treatment for water on my knee.
Oh, gee, Dennis, I didn't know you had water on the knee.
Well, I have, and it bothers me a lot, especially at night.
At night?
Yeah, the splashing keeps me awake. It's at its worst about 3 in the morning.
Why?
That's when the tide comes in.
Don, you see, Don, you shouldn't have asked him. I was going to ignore the silly kid. He's making the whole thing up. He hasn't got water on the knee, probably never had it.
Oh, yes, I have. I got it when my mother dropped me when she was giving me a bath.
When you were a baby?
No, last week. Now cut that out!
I'm leaving now. And Malin, don't forget to call me about those arrangements. So long, fellas.
How'd you enjoy your dinner, Mr. Benny?
That was very good, Rochester, and I'll have my coffee.
Here you are. Would you like a little cognac in your coffee?
I would, but have we got any cognac?
Yeah, I squeezed out that fruitcake you got for Christmas.
I'm glad you squeezed that joke out, finally. Thought we weren't going to get it there for a minute. Well, good. That's my next line. Good.
Say, boss, after I finish the dishes, can I have the rest of the night off?
I guess so. Have you got a date?
Yeah. I'm going over to my girlfriend Susie's house to watch television. It's so nice and cozy there. Just the two of us on the sofa with the lights dimmed down.
Hey, this will be the third time this week you've been there. Have there been any good shows on television this week?
Who knows? Her set's broken.
Okay, Rochester, you can have the night off, but be sure you're home at a reasonable hour.
You're reasonable or am I reasonable?
Never mind. Just don't be so late.
Want me to answer the phone, boss?
No, you finish the dishes. I'll get it in the den. His reasonable or my reasonable. Never forget last New Year's Eve. He went out, he didn't come in till 5. February 5. I'm going to have a long talk with him. Hello?
Hi, Jack. This is Mail and Murray.
Oh, have you got those musical arrangements I asked for?
Well, I was bringing them over with Remley, but he had to stop off here at a gas station to get filled up.
Oh, well, wait a minute. I didn't know Frankie had a car.
He hasn't. He'll drink anything.
Oh.
I'll try and get them over soon.
Okay, goodbye. Hey, imagine Frankie getting high on gasoline. I hope it's mobile gas, then everybody can look for the sign of the flying red guitar player. Gosh, what a bunch of guys those musicians are. I don't know why I keep them around. They can't play music. A lot of times they don't even bother showing up for the program. When they do show up, the condition they're in. Now that I think of it, those fellas haven't sobered up once in all the years they've been with me. If they ever start cashing their checks, I'm going to fire them. I don't know why. Say, what's this message here on the phone? It's in Rochester's handwriting. Darrell Zanuck called. Oh, Rochester! Rochester, what's this message about Mr. Zanuck calling?
Oh, yes, Mr. Benny. He phoned this afternoon from 20th Century Fox Studios.
What did he want? What did he want? What?
You owe him a dime. Their Coke machine is out of order.
Oh, well, you know what to do. Send him the questionnaire he has to fill out and the 6 form letters he has to sign in front of a notary public.
But, boss, nobody will go through all that just to get a dime back.
I know.
Are you going out to a movie tonight, Mr. Benny?
No, there's some good wrestling on television tonight, and I want to watch it. Hey, look what time it is. I better turn the set on, or I'll miss the main event.
Well, while you're watching TV, I'll go back in the kitchen and finish my work.
Okay, Rochester. While the set's warming up, I think I'll get comfortable here in this chair. Hey, what's this picture coming on? Those 4 fellows look like the Sportsman Quartet.
And yes, it was the Sportsman Quartet. Unfortunately, they were about to sing a song, and it was also a song as a commercial for Lucky Strike cigarettes. And since we're not supposed to play those on the radio, we're going to play some commercials of our own at this point in time. February 27th, 1955, Jack Benny here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks for tuning into Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. People ask, why don't we leave those commercials in? They're not going to buy Lucky Strikes. Technically, on the books, it's still there that even for historical purposes, we're not supposed to air them cigarette commercials. So we're not going to do that. I don't want to put this station in any sort of trouble, don't you know? We are listening to Jack Benny, February 27th, 1955. Jack is going to try to watch the wrestling matches.
This concludes another program of music sponsored by the Shamrock Hotel in Houston, Texas. For reservations, call the clerk right at the hotel. The number is Houston 69038, 576489, 41027369.
Gee, everything's so big down in Texas. What a number.
Oh, correction, please. I've just been notified that for reservations at the Shamrock Hotel, you're to call the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. The Flamingo has just won the Shamrock.
Now, that's silly. I better get the channel the wrestling matches are on.
Well, that was an exciting bout.
That's it.
Now, before we telecast the main event, here's a word from our sponsor, the Friendly Credit Clothing Store.
Yes, men, if you need slacks, suits, sport jackets, or any other wearing apparel, get them at the Friendly Credit Clothing Store. No money down, just pay $1 a week. And remember, these clothes are guaranteed not for months, not for years, but for life. They have to be because that's how long you'll be paying. Now back to the wrestling matches.
And now we're ready for the main event. Both wrestlers are now in the ring. The contestants are Lord Featherstone and Professor Lamont, who is known as the absent-minded professor.
Gosh, what big fellows they are.
The referee has summoned the men to the center of the ring. Featherstone has taken off his robe, and his trunks are black with a white stripe. Now the professor is taking off his robe, and his trunks are... Well, he really is absent-minded.
Yeah, I'll say he is. Oh, the match is about to start. This should be good.
There's the bell. The men advance to the center of the ring and start circling around each other as they...
What happened to the picture? The set went off. I wonder what's wrong with it. Oh, Rochester! Rochester!
Yes, boy?
I was watching television. All of a sudden, the set went off.
Maybe you made a short circuit when you dropped in the coin.
That set's in the guest room. It's probably just a loose wire. You try and fix it. I'm going to get the wrestling matches on radio.
Yes, sir.
See, I don't even know what radio station it's on. Let's see.
Please don't leave me, Joe. Please, please. I've been a good wife to you, although I'll admit that I've nagged a little. Never had your dinner ready when you came home at night. Never made the beds in the morning and let the furniture stay dusty.
That's not it. That's a soap opera. Maybe it's around here somewhere. That's it.
And Dusty Rhodes has just hit a home run into the right field stands, and the Giants defeat Cleveland in the first game of the World Series.
This program was transcribed earlier for release at this more convenient time.
Oh, for heaven's sake, where are those wrestling matches?
We played the game of stay away, but it cost more than I could pay. Without you, I can't find my way. I surrendered, dear.
Boy, would she stump the experts on what's my line. Rochester, how are you coming along with the television set? I can't get the program on radio.
Well, I've looked all over the set. I can't see anything wrong.
But it just went off suddenly. Say, maybe the wire's been kicked loose where it's plugged in.
You want me to go over to the Coleman's house and see?
Look, never mind the joke. Just see if you can fix the set. I'll try the radio again.
And sometimes I forget to sew buttons on your shirt. And leave a sink full of dirty dishes, spend too much money on clothes, neglect the children, burn your toast in the morning.
Maybe it's lower on the dial here.
And now, fellow members of the Ladies' Auxiliary, it is my pleasure to present our guest of honor.
Ladies, it's a pleasure to be with you today. And as a member of the local Chamber of Commerce, I feel it's my duty to defend our fair community against these disparaging remarks about the smog conditions in the Los Angeles area. They say that smog is a menace, but I am proud to say that I was born in this community and have lived here for 36 years. I'll admit we do have a very minor problem. But they would have you believe that there hangs over the... That's wrong. Humans would take the atmosphere. And restrict visibility. Now this is a ridiculous untruth, which I deny. Close that window and turn on the air conditioning.
See, I get everything but what I want to listen to. Where are the wrestling matches?
I may seem proud.
Oh, for
I
heaven's
may act gay. It's just a pose.
I don't want that.
I'm not that way.
Her, the smog doesn't hurt at all. Why can't I get the wrestling matches here?
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar.
Thank you, Mark Anthony.
What?
This news program was transcribed earlier for release at this more convenient time.
Well, this I don't understand at all.
We'll bury Caesar in just a minute. First, a word from our sponsor.
For heaven's sake, Rochester, can't you get that television set fixed?
I'm fixing it.
What's wrong with this radio set here? I want to get the wrestling matches.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the wrestling matches. You're listening to Jack Benny, February 27th, 1955. I'm Wyatt Cox, and we'll conclude Jack Benny on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. But first, these important messages. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Mike Lindell and MyPillow launching the MyPillow 2.0. Now, when Mike invented MyPillow, it had everything you could want in a pillow. Now, nearly 20 years later, he's discovered a new technology that makes MyPillow even better. Of course, the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, but now with brand new fabric with a temperature-regulating thread, it's the softest, smoothest, and coolest pillow you'll ever own. Say goodbye to tossing and turning and flipping your pillow over in the middle of the night. And more great news on the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer with my promo code Wyatt. MyPillow 2.0 is 100% made in the USA, 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square to receive the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer. Use my promo code Wyatt or call 1-800-928-4715. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Jack's TV set isn't working. He wants to see the wrestling matches. So now he's going to listen to them on the radio since the TV set's on the fritz. So let's get back to this. Jack Benny, February 27th, 1955.
Rochester, can't you get that television set fixed?
I'm fixing it.
What's wrong with this radio set here? I want to get the wrestling matches.
Sometimes I'd stay out too late at night.
Oh,
And I always have accidents while driving your car, and I lose the rent money playing canasta.
Oh.
And I'll admit that I've let myself become sloppy. But you're not going to leave me, are you, Joe?
Yes!
Gosh, Joe had a big part. Why can't I get the wrestling matches?
Ooh, has this been exciting?
I've got it.
Yes, this has been the most exciting wrestling match we've ever seen. You've just heard a statement from the winner of the match, and now coming up to our microphone for an interview is the loser. Now, you lost the match when the referee gave you the submission signal. Now, can you tell us why you gave up?
He broke my arm, tore out my hair, and it was more than I could bear. When he stomped on my neck, I had to say, I surrender here.
Well, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. I'm going to a movie. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Brotherhood Week, sponsored by the National Conference of Christians and Jews. 7 days set aside to remind us of our responsibility to our neighbors every week of the year. It's a reminder that this country was built by people of every race, every creed, and every color. That mixture has been our strength. Let's keep America strong by living brotherhood. Let's keep it one nation under God. Thank you.
Gee, boss, it's a shame the wrestling matches were over before I could get the television set fixed.
Yeah. Well, gosh, it's too early to go to bed. I know what I'll do. There's an all-night supermarket down on the corner, and I'll go down there now and buy our Thanksgiving turkey.
That's a good idea, boss.
This program was transcribed earlier for release at this more convenient time.
Yeah. Good night.
The Jack Benny program is written by Sam Perrin, Milt Josephsberg, George Balzer, John Tackerberry, Al Gordon, Hal Goldman, and produced and transcribed by Hilliard Marks.
Many people may not get the transcribed jokes. Radio and television were still by and large live at the point in time that this show was released. And sometimes they would record material that inadvertently would be dated before the time it got on the air. And so the jokes about this was transcribed for release at this more convenient time meant we screwed up. Sort of. All righty. February 27th, 1955, Jack Benny here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Bob Bailey, as yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is straight ahead. Thanks for joining us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now it's time for us to begin a brand new yours truly, Johnny Dollar story, The Fathom Five Matter. This part one of the five-part story was originally broadcast February 27th, 1956. And somebody answer the phone.
From Hollywood, it's time now for
Johnny Dollar.
Ralph Steedler, Johnny. Delta Liability.
Oh, hiya, Ralph. What's on your mind?
Poetry, you Philistine. The bard's immortal words.
Which words?
Full fathom five thy father lies. Of his bones are corals made. And
Those are pearls that were his eyes.
Yeah.
What's the case, Ralph? Robbery? A pearl necklace?
Life insurance. $75,000 worth of bones. Down on the bottom of the deep blue sea. Or so they say.
So who say?
The insured's wife. The insured's best friend. Oh, they're quite positive about it.
But you're not, is that it?
Johnny, if I'm going to be stuck for 75 G's, at least I ought to get the straight dope, shouldn't I?
All right, I'll get it for you. Give me the who and where.
It happened in Miami Beach. Check with the DA's office there. The insured was a man named William Markey.
And the beneficiary?
His wife, poor wretch.
Oh, you're biased, Ralph.
Sure, I'm paying alimony. So look it over, Johnny, and keep in touch.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Home Office, Delta Liability, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Fathom Five Matter. Item 1, $143.40. Transportation, tips, and incidentals, Hartford to Miami. Purpose of assignment, aside from a chance to get a look at the sun, to check into the death of one William Markey, or to find out if there was a death, and how it happened, and where was the body, and if not, why not, and if so, how? Or rather to determine... Well, anyway, the deputy investigator from the DA's office, a man named Barney Wilson, was at least as confused as I was, and he'd had a 2-day head start.
Now, we're going on the assumption, of course, that the man is dead. But legally, you understand, the fact hasn't yet been established.
Meaning exactly what, Mr. Wilson?
Well, it's pretty strong evidence, but no corpus delicti. Not so far, anyway.
Maybe you'd better start at the beginning.
And that would be where, Mr. Dollar? How much do you know about the case?
Well, very little.
Mm-hmm.
The dead man, if he is dead, was named William Markey. He was 46 years old, owner of a consulting engineering firm in New York.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been married to his present wife for 3 years. Her age is 30, and she's the beneficiary of his insurance.
And, I might add, a charming and lovely young woman.
They've been down here for about a month. And 3 days ago, Markey was killed, or allegedly killed, in an accident.
That's right.
Drowned, as I understand it, when a fishing launch sank a mile or two offshore. And then... Well, you can take it from there, Mr. Wilson.
Now, your responsibility in the case is primarily to the insurance company. Is that right, Mr. Dollar?
Entirely, not primarily. Why, what do you mean?
And it would be to the company's advantage if Markey's death were not legally established, huh?
They wouldn't have to pay the claim, if that's what you mean.
Then it's reasonable to suppose, since the whole case is pretty vague at present, that your efforts will be devoted to creating doubts as to whether Markey is really dead.
Mr. Wilson, I think it's reasonable to suppose that I can't very well answer your questions without knowing exactly what has happened.
Well, all right, then. Briefly, this is it. Apparently, Markey came down here to bid on a construction job, a manufacturing plant. We didn't get the job, but he stayed on, he and his wife and the young fellow that was with him.
What young fellow?
Name of Danny Haynes. He worked for Markey, a draftsman or engineer. Evidently a personal friend of the Markeys.
Oh.
The three of them took a house down the beach south and spent all their time together. Night clubbing, one thing and another.
I see.
Anyhow, 3 days ago, Markey and young Haynes went out fishing together. Hired a charter boat, a small cabin cruiser named the Fathom Five, and headed south along the coast, working the offshore banks.
Whose idea was the trip?
Markey's, according to young Haynes. In fact, all the rest of the story is according to Haynes. Nobody else saw what happened.
And what did happen?
Well, Haynes says they anchored off the reef and both of them fished from the dinghy for a while. Then Markey decided he'd go back to the cruiser and fix some breakfast. Haynes put him aboard and took the dinghy out alone. He says he fished along the reef for about 30 minutes before he looked back and saw the cruiser was afire. It was nearly a mile away, according to his story, and by the time he got back, the boat was a pillar of flame.
He didn't see any sign of Markey?
No, he says not. He couldn't get aboard because of the flames, and a few minutes later, the cruiser sank.
No one else saw it? There were no other boats around?
No, it was early morning, and there weren't many others out. It had rained during the night, and there was a fairly heavy fog. They were only a mile and a half or so offshore, so Haynes rode in with the dinghy and reported it.
Tell me, what was the depth of the ocean where the cruiser sank?
Oh, it was only about 50 feet. I've got a salvage company working now to raise it.
Get a diver down?
Yes, but he didn't find out much. He couldn't get inside the hold.
That's about the size of it, huh?
It is. Until they get that cruiser raised so we can take a look at it. And, of course, it may not tell us a thing.
What about the currents along the reef where that boat went down?
Oh, they're pretty bad. Strong and erratic. A body could be carried through the reefs and on out to sea and never be found.
Well, I was thinking more of the possibility of a good swimmer getting into shore. You said they were anchored only a mile and a half out.
Yes, well, it's possible, but not very probable. He'd have been seen by Haynes or somebody else.
There was a heavy fog, wasn't there?
Fairly heavy.
And, of course, Haynes could be lying. Maybe he did see him.
I said it was possible. But that's not the line I'm planning to take, Mr. Dollar.
So I gather.
They'll bring that hull to the surface sometime tomorrow. Now, maybe we'll have some evidence then. Or maybe Markey's body will turn up in the next 48 hours.
And if not?
Then, Mr. Dollar, I will petition the probate court to declare him legally dead.
I suppose you've got some reason for all this, Rush.
Yes. I want the fact of death established in order to file a murder charge.
Danny Haynes?
Who else? It's the old story, isn't it? 2 men go out and only one comes back. Unwitnessed accident. Nothing new about it.
No. And it's never been an easy one to prove.
Well, it'll be a lot tougher a year from now if you people put up a fight and force the decision up to the Superior Court.
Suppose Haynes himself fights it.
I wish he'd try. Be the next thing to an admission of guilt.
Oh, Mrs. Markey. She has legal status in the case.
She could do it, but she won't.
Yeah, you're probably right. She wouldn't be likely to throw away $75,000. Well, I can't tell you what we'll do yet, Mr. Wilson. I'll have to look around first, talk to the people involved, get my feet on the ground.
Fine. Well, you just do that. Here, I'll give you the addresses.
Oh, good.
Mrs. Markey is still at the beach house. Young Haynes has moved into a hotel near there.
All right, thanks. Say, how did the three of them get along during the month they've been here?
Like peas in a pod, from all appearances. Of course, what was going on behind the scenes might have been another story.
It usually is.
I think that's where we'll find the motive. Not that Mrs. Markey encouraged Haynes at all. She's a fine woman.
I know, and she's beautiful. And this is the South.
How's that?
So long, Mr. Wilson. I'll keep in touch. Expense account item 2, $3.35. Telegram to Hartford requesting an investigation of the Markey firm's financial status, both currently and over the past 3 years. And a similar check of Markey's personal financial status. Item 3, $4.10. Taxi to the Pompano Beach Hotel to talk with the DA's prime suspect, Danny Haynes.
Look, Mr. Dollar, I've been over the whole thing with the police a half a dozen times.
I'd still like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
They've got the whole story, all I know about it. They had a stenographer to take it down. Why don't you go to them with your questions?
Maybe I got different questions.
I told them everything I know about it.
Look, Danny, you don't have to talk to me, but if you're smart, you will.
Why so?
Because the police already have their minds made up. Or at least Barney Wilson has.
Sure. He's out to prove I killed Mr. Markey.
Well, look, my mind isn't made up yet, so you can't lose anything by talking to me. Unless, of course, you did kill him.
It happened exactly the way I told them. All right, what do you want to know?
How long did you work for Markey?
2 years.
You get along with him all right?
Sure. It was a good job, no complaints.
You got to be pretty close personal friends, I understand.
Well, I used to go to their apartment in New York once or twice a week for dinner, drinks.
And then the three of you came down here together on a vacation.
It wasn't a vacation. Mr. Markey came down to bid on a job.
Did he need you along for that?
Well, he thought there might be some sketches or plans to draw up.
And were there?
Well, no. As it turned out, they weren't necessary.
Funny, Markey wouldn't know that ahead of time, being an engineer.
Well, actually, it was sort of Edna's suggestion of Mrs. Markey, I mean.
I see. Yeah, now I see.
Now, look, don't get the idea there's been anything between us. She's been swell to me. She's just wonderful, that's all.
All right. So the three of you came down on business, and within a few days, the job contract was awarded to another firm, but you still stayed on for 3 more weeks.
That was Markey's idea. I don't know why exactly. I know he'd counted a lot on getting that job. But I was getting a free vacation. Why should I argue?
So all of you just relaxed and lived it up, huh?
Yeah, that's about it.
Mr. Markey, too? No apparent worries on his mind?
Well, he was moody sometimes. Went off by himself. But that wasn't too unusual. He was like that quite a lot.
He and his wife seem to be getting along all right?
Sure. As far as I noticed, why?
Well, let's talk about that accident for a minute, Danny. Whose idea was it to go on the fishing trip?
Mr. Markey's. He woke me up at 5 a.m, said he'd already phoned and hired the boat.
The Fathom Five?
Yeah, the same one we'd had a couple of times before.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wasn't much for it. It was misting out with a heavy fog, but he was real hot on the idea, and I couldn't very well argue he was the boss.
Was Mrs. Markey up when you left?
No, but she knew we were going. She'd packed a lunch. I guess they'd talked about it the night before.
All right, you took the boat out then and followed the reef south, and what happened?
Well, we anchored as close as we could get to the reef and went out in the dinghy for about an hour. No luck at all. Then Mr. Markey decided he'd go back on board and fix something to eat. I let him off and then rowed back along the reef. I figured as long as I'd had to come, I might as well try for a strike or two at least. And a while after that, I looked back and saw the cruiser was on fire.
Was it still foggy then?
Yeah, about the same. I could just see the glow. I couldn't even be sure what it was until I got close. I tried to get on board, but the flames were too high. I kept yelling, but there was nobody around.
And you didn't see or hear any sign of Markey?
No, I guess he was already dead. Then, not more than 5 minutes later, the cruiser sank.
Yeah. Danny, do you have any theory as to what caused the fire?
Well, there was a hot plate on board. A gasoline pressure rig. It was an old one in pretty bad shape. We talked about it before. I think it may have leaked into the bulkheads in the bilge. And when Mr. Markey went to light it to fix breakfast, the whole boat just went up in flames.
I see. Tell me something, Danny. Do you think Markey could have committed suicide?
Suicide? Why? For what reason?
Oh, maybe losing that contract. You said it was pretty important to him. Or maybe he thought he was losing his wife.
What do you mean?
Well, maybe he misinterpreted your friendship with her, Danny.
You're crazy.
You're in love with her, aren't you?
That's my business. I told you there was nothing between us.
All right. But did Markey know that? Look, you're the same age she is, and he was 15 years older. A man like that might get to wondering...
Knock it off, Dollar. Nobody's private life is going to be dragged into this.
You better stop and think, Danny, while you've still got time. A defendant in a murder trial doesn't have any private life.
Now, here's our star to tell you about tomorrow's intriguing episode of this week's story.
Tomorrow, a lady weeps, a lover curses, and a strange, grim relic is brought up from the sea. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by Les Crutchfield, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Be sure to join us tomorrow night, same time and station, for the next exciting episode of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
February 27th, 1956, Part 1 of the Fathom Five Matter of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Ted over at RadioMemories.com has the complete collection of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, including shows where Johnny was portrayed by Charles Russell, Edmund O'Brien, John Lund, and, of course, Bob Bailey, going all the way to the end with Mandel Kramer. Contact Ted at RadioMemories.com. That's RadioMemories.com. And visit our webpage. Our page is at ClassicRadio.stream. That is ClassicRadio.stream. There you can stream our shows on demand. You can learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me there, find our social media links. And if you'd like to support us, you can buy me a coffee. The Buy Me a Coffee link also helps us to keep our distribution channels up and running, along with helping us acquire additional great classic radio collections to bring you right here. That's at classicradio.stream. Classicradio.stream. Don't forget that you can also find you some great things at mypillow.com. That's mypillow.com. Use my promo code Wyatt and save a big bunch of money on anything on the site, and also at all of their sites of the MyPillow family. Thanks for tuning in. Thank this station. Support their advertisers. Tell your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.